Good evening, Reed Spring Wolves. This is the January post-board meeting update. I look forward to sharing a few things that we covered this evening. Wanted to first share out that we are really just felt honored for all the wonderful people, the number of people that came and looked at our Table Rock Career Center. We had our grand opening event last week. I don't know, I didn't take a count, but there were hundreds of people there in 2 different sessions. We appreciate everyone that came. I think the general sentiment and feeling that we got from that event is that everybody loved the facility and was just in awe about the kind of facility that this is going to provide, the education that this is going to provide for our kids, having that new career center. Kids love it, and just a wonderful use of taxpayer dollars. We have, at this point, we went to our tax base, went to all of our voters a few years ago, and we said we were going to run a bond issue. We've been able to satisfy, at this point, our primary school early childhood program. We have done that as we said to the voters that we would do. We've almost completed the park completely. We still have our playground to get put in, which those pieces are getting fabricated now. And then we have, of course, our career center. And so it's just good to be able to have this kind of crowning building to be able to serve kids. We're in the middle of strategic planning again. And right now our teams, our community members and patrons and staff members are working hard on action planning to try to figure out what action steps need to be taken to get to our new Vision 2030. Going great. And so we'll see what comes from all that work built by our community. I think for those of you that are listening that may not be tied into the community or may not be an employee, we feel very, very important that it's very important to engage our community in this work. And so our strategic planning process allows that to happen, allows you to have a voice and to share and give input and do research into the direction for the school district and how we educate kids for the next 5 years. A much more student-focused, student-centered plan. While our concluding 5-year plan has been phenomenal and impactful, we feel like this one's going to even be greater as we dive into, as it should be. Wanted to let you know, if you're a chamber member, we are hosting the February chamber board meeting here. So we're excited to have you on our campus. We'll go over the strategic plan and some of the work that's been done this year. And then our Golden Friends Luncheon is on March 12th. So those of you that love to attend that, will get information coming out soon, and you'll be able to sign up for our wonderful luncheon in March. And then, oh gosh, we already got our Excellence Award Banquet in May, which is our big event for our employees to recognize all the great things that they have done throughout the school year. A few things that I'd updated the board on, updated them on our water issue. Obviously, for knock on wood right now, we've been functioning well, water's working well. I want to give, again, a big shout out to everyone that was involved in that project. I think multiple groups, multiple people, Branson West specifically, I'll call you out because you spent probably the most amount of time outside your responsibility area to work with us, and appreciate all that you did to help navigate us through that issue. Black Creek, you've been wonderful, others as well. We really appreciate that. The most important person, one of the most important individuals that has to be recognized is Jason Reinsch. Jason Reinsch is our new Director of Custodial Maintenance and Facilities. May have messed that title up, but Jason is an amazing man who has done a phenomenal job. He wouldn't want any credit given to him, but he deserves all the credit for helping us navigate that water issue at a high level. We discussed tonight, the board, future forecasting. How do we move this? How do we move forward with this? How do we manage this? We can't go in a situation like this where we're out of operations because of the lack of a municipality or a city or a town that can't provide support. And so while we don't have answers right now, we definitely are exploring potential options down the road, which could be that we move all of our utilities out and move them into Branson West so that we can have the support of Branson West in the future. We're still kind of in early stages of that. So we're still exploring. So we didn't have extensive conversation, but enough to know that we need to make this fix and figure out what we can do long term. And right now it kind of looks like one of the things we want to explore is what would it look like for us to just annex all of our utilities into Branson West so that we could have their support. So we'll be working on that and continue to dive down that as part of our facilities planning. Again, we updated the board on the strategic planning and our action planning. We appreciate everybody who's engaged in that. We have had over 100 people at our last action plan meeting. We had over 35 people involved in our initial strategic plan meeting. So we're already at 130, 140 that are working on it. Everybody was, again, invited to be part of the process with action planning. So we got a really great group that are working hard on each of our new strategies. And we're still working hard to wrap up Strategic Plan 2025, which we'll update the board on here at the end of the school year. I mentioned TRCC opening. We are in the beginning of the legislative session. It's always an interesting time for public schools. Of course, we have a shift in power, a shift in leadership at the state level with Governor Kehoe, and then the new legislative priorities that start getting slammed. I can't remember how many thousands of bills start off early on in the session, and then they get whittled down to what makes it past the crossing the line. We know, if you listen to Governor Kehoe's recent address, that open enrollment, student choice are big priority for him, and that he'll continue to support career education. I think he's earmarked about $20 million additional funding into career technical education. He is saying that he's going to continue to fund the transportation formula. I personally have some questions about that. Not necessarily that he'll fund that line item, but it sounded more like a political statement to make, because one of the following statements he made was that he is not fully funding the formula, which the formula is a formula that's used to calculate how much money schools get by the state. We are about 72% or so funded by our local tax base. So much higher than some other areas around us, not Branson necessarily, or Hollister and some others, but if you get more rural, you're going to be much more funded by the state. But we still are funded by the state and federal government to an extent, and so it's still something we have to keep our eyes on. He's not going to fully fund that budget as it should have been. We anticipate more information to come out and what that will play out. I will say, from our district has not been in a healthier financial position that I have seen in the history of the Reed Spring School District. We are healthier than we've ever been, and we also anticipate continued growth with everything that's expanding here in our neck of the woods on this side of 76 in this way. So we're in a really great position to continue challenging our culture so that we can bring the best educational experience for our kids. And at the heart of that are the people that we work with. So we'll continue to look at salaries and different things on how to ensure that we're in the top prime spot for recruitment and retention of all of our staff across the board. So we discussed about those things. Dr. Kite gave an update on our Student Success Ready Network. This is a collaboration within the region, actually across the state, on looking at how we can tie into how we can really truly monitor student learning and progression over time, outside of just a one time a year map and end of course exam. It's also looking at how can we provide learning at a way that's individualized and customized to kids. And so it's a perfect time for us to be part of that, because that's part of our new plan. Liz Smith provided her finance report, and Ben Fisher as well. Great work. They both do exceptional work on that. And then we had, again, some of the legislative updates that we shared. Mr. Noonan is our Special Services Director. He's doing a great job in this role. His new role is his first year in that role. He led a discussion around ELL learners. These are English language learners. Our numbers have increased, I believe he said, from 23 students last year. When I first got here, we were in low teens, to now we're, I think, at 36 students. So just talking about that population, how can we serve them at a higher level? These are very bright students, but also students that are challenged with the language barrier. So we need to make sure we have great staff, great individuals that are working with them now, but is there a way that we can do that at a deeper level? And so we look at what does that potential service look like down the road? And so he shared some information about that, how we might expand staffing to meet those needs. That is also something, as we've been meeting one-on-one with our teachers and our employees, one of the feedback pieces we got is that we need more support for classrooms for these students that speak a different language. The board approved an enhancement grant for our career center, just a couple items for the shop, about $9,000 items for some aluminum cutter that's pretty necessary for our welding shop. So they approved that purchase. The 25-26 school calendar has been approved and adopted, and so that we'll make sure that gets on the website so that you have the most current calendar for the next school year, and you can start planning those things that you have coming up next year. And then finally, we talked about two additional things. One is our teacher of deaf hard hearing. A job description was created. We have a halftime FTE, a halftime position for students that are deaf or hearing impaired to help serve that. So that was just a little bit of a shift of an FTE. There's no financial cost to that, just a little bit of an adjustment on how we use our current staffing. And then the mowing and landscaping bid was reviewed, discussed at the board level, and ultimately approved. And the board approved Snell Grove Outdoor Services to provide our landscaping coverage and weekly lawn care services throughout our district. So we added the lawn care piece or the landscaping piece to this contract that wasn't in our previous agreement because of the critical need to take care of our lawn or take care of our landscaping. And we've also expanded into additional spaces. We got the park now that's going to have to be managed, and new career center, and we just want things to look sharp and take care of those things and be good stewards of our resources. It was a really good meeting. That was our short little recap. I hope everybody's doing really well. We're getting into February. This is the time, more importantly, this is the time for kids to have stability. And stability means going to school. We provide great resources here for them to be successful. We encourage your kids to come. If they're feeling a little under the weather, you could use our nurses as a gauge so that they can take temperatures and things. But we're in the middle of really intensive learning. So being here at school is really critical to their success. We appreciate your support in that. Hope everyone continues to have a great winter season. Hopefully we don't have to cancel school. We can move on to spring, but appreciate everybody and have a great one. Thanks.